People principle number 2. The mirror principle. The mirror principle says the first person we must examine is ourselves. And coping with difficult people, I love this quote, coping with difficult people is always a problem, especially if the difficult person happens to be you. And the question I must ask myself, have I examined myself and taken responsibility for who I am? Here's how the mirror test works. People unaware of who they are and what they do often damage relationships with others. The way to change that is to look in the mirror. It is something all of us must do. It's what I call taking the mirror test. Consider these truths that we must learn about ourselves. Number 1, the first person I must know is myself. That speaks of our self-awareness. Human nature seems to endow people with the ability to size up everybody in the world but themselves. That is so true. As I have worked and talked and counseled with people, they're a much better evaluator of others than they are of themselves. Because you see, we judge others by their actions and we judge ourselves by our motives. We know what we intend to do, what we would want to do, what we feel and what we would like to have done. Number 2, the first person I must get along with is myself. This deals with my self-image. Sidney Harris observed, if you're not comfortable with yourself, you can't be comfortable with others. I would take that one step farther. If you do not believe in yourself, you will sabotage relationships. Most of you are aware, because I wrote the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, that I talk about the law of the lid. The law of the lid basically says that if this hand is my leadership skill, then this lid, this leadership skill and effectiveness will determine how I can grow my organization or how I can develop my department, etc. That there's a lid, a leadership lid that keeps us from expanding or growing. I would just stop and say to you, that's true about relationships also. There's a relationship lid that keeps us from expanding and growing in our knowledge and understanding and connection with and relationship with others. And it deals with this right here. If you can't get along with yourself, if you have a poor self-image, I can promise you, you'll never get along with a lot of people, and you'll never be able to believe in them because you don't believe in yourself. Number 3, the first person to cause me problems is myself. That's self-honesty. Or as comedian Jack Parr quipped, looking back, my life seems like one big obstacle race with me being the chief obstacle. I did a tape one time, a leadership tape, entitled How to Get Out of Your Own Way. And basically the thesis of the tape was, don't worry about competition. Most people never get sidetracked with competition or beat up by competition. They just blow themselves up. Most people, if you just let them alone, it's only a matter of time till they go into the ditch. We can't even run a race sometimes with ourselves because of the self-image, because of this whole process of the mirror principle, and unable to cope with who we really are. Number 4, the first person I must change is myself. This deals with self-improvement. In the crypts of Westminster Abbey, the following words were written on the tomb of an Anglican bishop who lived in the 11th century. When I was young and free, my imagination had no limits, and I dreamed of changing the world. As I grew older and wiser, I discovered the world would not change, so I shortened my sights somewhat and decided to change only my country. But it too seemed immovable. As I grew in my twilight years, in one last desperate attempt, I settled for changing only my family, those closest to me. But alas, they would have none of it. And now as I lie on my deathbed, I suddenly realized if I had only changed myself first, then by example I would have changed my family, and from their inspiration and encouragement, I would have been able to better my country, and who knows, I may have even changed my world. Number 5, The first person that can make a difference is myself. This deals with self-responsibility. In the 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork, I wrote about the law of significance, that one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. I truly believe that no significant accomplishment can be achieved by individual effort. However, I also believe that every significant accomplishment begins with the vision of one individual. That person not only possesses the vision, but also takes responsibility for carrying it out to others. If you want to make a difference in this world, you must take responsibility for yourself. A couple of years ago, I was going to Australia to speak at a conference, and Margaret and I stopped for a couple of days at Christchurch, New Zealand. Beautiful country. The first morning when we got up at our hotel, Margaret and I both love Diet Coke in the morning to kind of get that caffeine, get that blood flowing for you. And so I went on a search to find some Diet Coke, which I couldn't find any Diet Coke and couldn't find any ice. And I'm wandering the halls, and I see this door that basically says staff only. And me being the kind of person I am, I assumed that back there is the ice, and back there probably is some Diet Cola, and I raised my right hand, made myself a staff member, and entered the door. And looked around, and there was no Diet Coke, there was no ice. I'm about to leave this little area that was for staff only, and I look at the door that I'm about to open to walk out, and there's a full-length mirror. And at the top of the full-length mirror, it had these words: take a good look at yourself. What you see, the customer is about to see. And as I looked at that little mirror and I saw those words, I said to myself, every day I would like to tell people, before you go out into the world, look in the mirror. Take a good look at yourself. Because who you are is how you'll see others. What you represent by your actions, by your face, is going to have a lot to determine on how well you relate to people. Now, a lot of times, people, when they look in the mirror, they don't want to face reality. They're like the guy with a health problem. And he says, Doc, could you just touch up the x-rays? Could you just kind of work on those a little bit? It's not an x-ray issue. It's something that you and I have to do as we look in the mirror.